In the previous video, I gave my thoughts on the iconic Mega Man 2. In it, I pointed out how that game was the most popular Mega Man game on the NES, but then said that the other most popular Mega Man game on the OG Nintendo was Mega Man 3, which came out in 1990. But beyond it being really good and on the list of people's favorite Mega Man games, I don't think Mega Man 3 is talked about in depth much. So today I intend to share my thoughts and experiences with Mega Man 3, and I hope you enjoy it. But before I even think about it, we gotta give a huge special thanks to Private Internet Access for being the sponsor of today's video. I'm sure you in the viewing audience are familiar with what a VPN is at this point, but if not, Private Internet Access is a virtual private network that encrypts your data like your IP address or your internet history, giving you more privacy and security when using the internet. So you won't be at risk of your data being stolen when connected to things like public Wi-Fi at an airport or a coffee shop or what have you. They also don't store your data at all either. Using this, you can access the region-blocked content on streaming platforms too by connecting to the internet from those countries, which is pretty handy. Private Internet Access is available on all platforms and protects an unlimited amount of devices with your subscription plan. Signing up for Private Internet Access is risk-free with a money-back 30-day guarantee and has 24/7 customer support. To get in on this action, which I know you want to, you're going to want to check out piavpn.com/jaysreviews, because with that you get 83% off plus 4 months completely free. How's that for a deal? That's piavpn.com/jaysreviews. The link is in the description and the pinned comment. Having said that, let's get back to the show. As I said last week, Mega Man 2 was able to draw in a much bigger audience than the first Mega Man game through more marketing, being featured on the front cover of an issue of the Nintendo Power magazine, and from being a really solid game that improved upon the foundation of the first game in pretty much every respect. Now that the Mega Man franchise had some gas in the tank, you might think Mega Man 3 came together much easier than, say, Mega Man 2, which was a challenging project for the team.
Well, there's where you're wrong.
Mega Man 3 wound up being the most stressful one yet, and one that series producer Keiji Inafune would look back on and regard as one of the most stressful Mega Man projects they've ever done. Mega Man 2 released in Japan in 1988, and then Mega Man 3 released in 1990. Despite the extra time between releases, this didn't do anything to alleviate the issues of crunch development, as the director of the first two games, Akira Kitamura, left Capcom while Mega Man 3 was in development, so Inafune had to work with someone completely new to the franchise, producing a game that, Inafune claimed, was not in a properly finished state by the time of its release. I probably already knew that well before making this video, but it's always odd to reflect on because Mega Man 3's legacy is not that of an unfinished project marred by crunch development. As I said a moment ago, this game was one of the most popular games in the Mega Man franchise, also being one of the few Mega Man games to cross that 1 million units sold milestone. This is one people remember really fondly, as it, like Mega Man 2, was also featured on the front cover of a Nintendo Power issue and even came with a giant poster of the 8 Robot Masters and the new mech called Gamma that's the final boss. Sorry, not sorry for the spoiler. And then the US box art has also seen another leap in quality from the previous games. This time, Mega Man actually looks like Mega Man. If you took this character's silhouette, it would verifiably be Mega Man. But now we have a new problem, which is that facial expression which is trying to convey something as Mega Man blasts Sparkman in the Mega Busters. I can continue to highlight it every time I see it going forward, but the point is, now that they've finally figured out how to draw Mega Man in the West, they often struggled with the face. There are other goofy things about this cover art, like Rush just sitting in the back with Top Man, but still, they're clearly improving. The European art is actually able to draw Mega Man accurately by this point, as the European art is pretty much the same thing as the Japanese one. But then I don't know what happened to Dr. Wily up top, he looks all kinds of messed up, but back on target. As I said, I don't really remember much about Mega Man 3. The last time I played this game for longer than like 5 minutes was the Let's Play I published in 2016. I had to switch from my PS4, which I did Mega Man 1 and 2 on, to using the Wii U, since somehow my crap top at the time was able to record that without shitting itself as often. But besides that, there isn't really much to say about the playthrough at the moment, but I'll come back to the topic later. Now that I'm returning to Mega Man 3 for the first time in 8 years, I'm excited to see how I'll feel about this game. So let's get into it. Well, one area where Mega Man 3 feels rushed from the get-go is the title screen. Mega Man 2 had that intro cutscene, and now Mega Man 3 just starts up in this black void of nothing for a title screen. That only sticks out to me because I'm convinced there was meant to be more to this. Because why would the composers go this hard in the title screen music if most people will only hear it for 2 seconds? Seriously, listen to this absolutely boppin' tune. But yeah, there's no context for the story of this game in the actual game, so like Mega Man 1, we should consult the manual.
Calling Mega Man. Calling Mega Man. Come in, please. Mega Man, we need you. We're down to the wire on our peacekeeping project. We've got to get those last energy crystals or we can't finish it. Dr. Wily is here now, too. Yes, he's finally found his sanity. He knows where the crystals are. They're in the mining wilds, but we can't get to them. The robots are running amok and they're destroying everything. You gotta get there, Mega Man, and get those crystals. You'll have to face some pretty mean metal. Expect the worst. Is Wush there with you? Give him a boat to chew on and tell him it's from us.
Well, that's not nothing, and it's not the plot of the game, but we can do better. So here's the rundown. Dr. Wily has evidently been redeemed and wants to do good in the world and has thus teamed up with Dr. Light to create a peacekeeping robot called Gamma. Before the project can be completed, they need 8 energy elements. But mysteriously, the 8 robot masters the duo created to mine for these resources, Snake Man, Gemini Man, Needle Man, Magnet Man, Top Man, Shadow Man, Hard Man, and Spark Man have made off with the 8 pieces, and now it's up to Mega Man and his robotic dog, Rush, to find these robot masters, destroy them, and recover the pieces so Gamma can be completed. And along the way, Mega Man must contend with the mysterious Breakman, of whom we know very little about up front. So with that established, now we can play the game. Aesthetically, Mega Man 3 is very pleasing. First thing you see on the menu is how when picking through the various bosses, Mega Man will look at them from the center. It's a small detail, but I thought it was a nice touch. Just ignore that weird line of flickering pixels in the bottom right, though. When you're actually playing the stages, I thought the visuals were the best the series had seen yet, like how Mega Man's color palette was updated so that his skin tone is flesh-looking, compared to the yellowish shade he had before. The backgrounds have more variety and different designs than before as well, like how Snake Man's stage is decorated in these scaly green textures, or how the sky in Magnet Man's stage is comprised of different colors to make it look more visually distinct from the stages where the sky is just a flat shade of blue like Needle Man's level. Top Man's stage has a lot of colors and lights throughout, but a detail I thought was pretty cool was these exposed spikes that have clearly cracked through the glass that you run on for the rest of the stage. Gemini Man's stage has these unique red and blue rocks making up the foreground, and really, the list goes on. I think Mega Man 3 is a very visually appealing game, and sonically, the composers turned out another banger. Perhaps this is an unpopular opinion, but while playing through Mega Man 3, I hummed along to the tracks in the background more than I did in Mega Man 2, which was also an iconic and catchy NES soundtrack, but I just thought Mega Man 3 was the one I enjoyed more. When actually talking about the gameplay, all that was good from Mega Man 2 is still here. All the improvements to Mega Man's handling are still in place. The further we get through these games, expect to hear that kind of phrasing more often, but that's not fair to Mega Man 3 because this game adds a huge game changer to the moveset. In Mega Man 3, the titular hero can climb up ladders way faster than he did in the first 2 games. What a relief. What, was that not it? Oh right, I almost forgot! In this one, Mega Man can now slide along the ground by holding down on the D-pad and pressing the jump button. That's a pretty comfortable button mapping for the slide maneuver, and it was clever of the designers to think of that since the NES only has 2 action buttons that were both taken. The slide really shakes up how you play Mega Man more than you might think from the way I described it. In the Mega Man 1 review, I laughed at the instruction manual for claiming Mega Man could crouch when that was never a mechanic in the game. The truth is, it was supposed to be, they just never ended up implementing it because they thought it created too many options for the player. In that, you avoid attacks in Mega Man by jumping over them, so they thought a crouch button would make players debate with themselves over whether an attack was crouchable or jumpable, and they thought it was best to just leave it to jumping. In combat, the slide serves that purpose because you can quickly slide underneath incoming attacks, which just adds an extra bit of strategy to the Mega Man combat we've all gotten used to from the previous games. The slide changes the level design because now the designers can create timing challenges based on your sliding underneath things to avoid them or sliding through areas to get to secrets. Needle Man stage is the easiest to point to for this, as these pistons will rise up and down and sliding through them is the easiest way to avoid damage. I think Mega Man 3 has consistently good level design. For the 8 Robot Master stages, I thought the challenge was always fair. Like in Snake Man stage where these clouds will follow you, and if you shoot them, they'll turn into these bullet build type enemies that launch forward. You time your attacks so that you can avoid them while standing on these cloud platforms. Stages make good use of tiny diverging routes, like needing the rush coil to get to this upper part of Top Man stage. I thought it was cool in Magnet Man stage how you have this one segment of disappearing and reappearing blocks that gets harder and harder as you deal with wind pulling you in that direction while trying to jump. The escalation of difficulty was really well done here. Same in Sparkman stage with these timed electricity challenges, and just about every other stage as well. As I said, I thought the Robot Master stages of Mega Man 3 provided good platforming to master with enemies that have readable patterns and good opportunities with Rush and the Slide. The game earns a lot of points with me in terms of level design and gameplay. I found the bosses almost all well designed too. I always start with Snake Man in this game, but when I first played the game for the video, I was surprised at how much he was kicking my butt. There is an avoidable pattern to his attacks, but it just took me a few tries to actually get it down. But past that point, whether I was using the weakness or the default weapon, I was able to come out on top without too much struggle in Mega Man 3. The weapon roster is also far more balanced than the previous game. The easiest way to tell is by looking at the Shadow Blades, a direct repeat of the Metal Blades in the previous game. But this weapon doesn't fire in all 8 directions, doesn't travel the full distance of the screen, can only shoot one at a time, and is not as fast. Sounds like a total downgrade, but I think it's good for making sure the game balance isn't totally wrecked by one weapon. And then a weapon like the Magnet Missile that targets enemies from the ground and into the air consumes a lot of ammo per each use. There are some weapons in this game I didn't really like using, such as the Gemini Laser, which is just too slow for its own good and leaves you defenseless while it's slowly bouncing around the walls. And I also didn't find much use for the Hard Knuckle or the Top Spin besides boss weaknesses, but other weapons like the Search Snake, the Magnet Missile, the Spark Shock, the Shadow Blades, and the Needle Cannon carried their own weight perfectly fine and added to Mega Man's moveset meaningfully. I don't mean to say those weapons I didn't use as much aren't useful, because with experimentation you can find a use for just about any Mega Man weapon, just that in my playthrough there were ones I would stick to and ones I used way less often. The way the menu is designed in this game with the 2 tabs also makes me want to experiment less, because switching through things can be a bit of a pace killer. But don't get me wrong, the weapons might be more balanced than Mega Man 2, but this is certainly not a balanced game. In some ways, it actually is more unbalanced than Mega Man 2 was. Take for example, Mega Man 2 only giving players a maximum of 4 E-Tanks. It made those E-Tanks pretty valuable. In Mega Man 3, you can get a max of 9 E-Tanks, so you can just start hoarding them no problem, which makes the game too easy, especially in the final levels. Then there's Mega Man's robotic dog, Rush. Rush replaces the items you could collect in Mega Man 2. By default, every player will have Rush Coil in their inventory, and this allows Mega Man to jump on Rush's back and get a huge boost into the air, and then there will be many segments that require this because it's a default move. This is pretty cool and adds to stage design like I said before, but the other ones are really funny to use because they can easily break stage sections in half. You unlock the Rush Jet and the Rush Marine, the former of which can be used to fly over any difficult platforming section. If you don't want to contend with the section at the end of Top Man stage, the Rush Jet will take care of it for you. But it's not like Item 2 where you just flew forward. With Rush Jet, you can stop, you can go up, you can go down, it's way overpowered. And then the Rush Marine basically does the same, only underwater. So in theory, the water of Gemini Man stage will be easy to clear like this. Though, similar to the Metal Blades in Mega Man 2, I think that Rush Jet being so broken in Mega Man 3 is something that clearly warrants improvement in a sequel, but it's fun to toy around with while actually playing Mega Man 3. But let's instead shift focus to the singular way that Mega Man 3 is broken in a less desirable fashion. Clearly the designers thought Mega Man 2 wasn't long enough, because after you defeat all 8 Robot Masters in Mega Man 3, you're unceremoniously taken to what is pretty widely agreed upon as one of the worst parts in Mega Man history. In a series with like a shit ton of games, that's not a good sign. This shadowy figure called Doc Robot will appear in the boxes for Shadow Man, Spark Man, Needle Man, and Gemini Man stages. You have to play redesigned versions of these stages that are ultra difficult and battle 2 Mega Man 2 bosses in each one, with new weaknesses you need to figure out or obviously just look up on the internet. Before I even begin to talk about this, I just want to say that this is actually my first time playing the Doc Robot levels, and to that you might be thinking, haven't you said you've beaten this game multiple times before? Well yes, I did say that. But that's because everyone who gets into Mega Man via a YouTube recommendation knows the alleged horrors of Doc Robot, so I always just skipped it until this playthrough where I thought I had to play it for review purposes. But that's a really funny story in and of itself. I'm talking about my ancient-ass Let's Plays of these games on my other, currently defunct channel. My third playthrough was Mega Man 3, which ran for 4 parts. And since I'm in a reminiscing mood, I figured I'd reveal the truth of this LP, which was that my 15-year-old self pulled the most pointless stunt. At the end of Part 3, I briefly showed off the opening of the Doc Robot Sparkman stage, and then said that for brevity and redundancy's sake, I wasn't going to subject the viewer to the Doc Robot experience, so I was going to edit past it and just move on to the final castle. Really, I'm not going to make you guys sit through it while I go through 4 more stages with no checkpoints, fighting Doc Robot. The truth was that, like all my previous playthroughs of this game, I merely beat the 8 stages, loaded up a password generator on Google, created a password to get past Doc Robot, and then played the final stages. But I guess I thought that would make me look like a retro gaming amateur, so I said what I did in that clip I just played. The funny part to me is how pointless it was. If I made that LP today, I'd say fuck yeah, I skipped it. Do I look like I want to play Kaizo Mega Man for 30 minutes? I figured that would be a really funny story to tell in this video now that this long deleted LP is 8 years old. Although, while I'm on the subject of passwords, I took this completely for granted when talking about Mega Man 2, but the inclusion of passwords in and of itself is a pretty cool feature, as many early NES games made it a toss-up if there was going to be no save system whatsoever, passwords, or an actual save system like The Legend of Zelda. The Mega Man games used passwords for a long time, starting with Mega Man 2. So that's worthy of acknowledgement. But with that said, we can talk about the actual Doc Robot levels. Honestly, they weren't as bad as I was expecting. I guess this is score 1 for actually trying games yourself instead of believing everything you're told on the internet, but it's not exactly fun either. If you made it this far, I believe you'll probably beat these with enough patience, as by this point you have Rush Jet, you have Rush Coil, and you have all the special weapons. The biggest issue you're probably going to run into is that many of these segments feel like damage boosting is the only solution you really have, while also contending with really limited checkpoints, so large chunks of levels will have to be done over and over upon death, or God forbid, a game over. Some parts do just throw the kitchen sink at you, like Shadow Man's Doc Robot section, and design like that is why I'm saying this part's not really that fun, even if it's not impossible either. The part that kicked my ass the most was actually the one at the end of the Sparkman section where you have the falling blocks you need to time your way through against a pit. But then I watched a friend do it in one try, so maybe I just sucked. That is absolutely an option. Regardless, on repeat runs, you can probably get used to any of this and get through it without much hassle, but what really reeks about the Doc Robot sections is that it's so blatantly obvious that it's here for no purpose other than padding the runtime. And that's pretty unusual for NES standards. What most NES games did to achieve that end was make the thing way more difficult than it needed to be, thus making the small amount of content seem more valuable, so we either had to rent the game multiple times or just buy it at full price. So I guess you could say Mega Man 3 was ahead of its time by inflating the value through filler content, which is also overly difficult anyway. Now that I've finally played it, I can say with confidence that anytime I revisit Mega Man 3 in the future, I will absolutely be passwording my way through it because I don't think this adds any value to the game, it just makes it far worse than it otherwise would be. But I don't have much else to add on it besides that. Once all that is said and done, you get the first mid-game cutscene in the Mega Man franchise. This stuck out to me because there were no cutscenes in the previous games while you actually played through it. However, because this is the first time Mega Man 3 even acknowledges that it has a story, the stilted dialogue and bad translation will leave you more confused than anything else. Apparently, Dr. Wily, who is in this game, got away with Gamma, who players without a manual just learned existed. Like seriously, without external research, this is just incoherent nonsense. But that brings us to the final set of stages. First, Mega Man has to fight Breakman again, someone who has occasionally shown up to either help or fight Mega Man. And then you play the Wily Castle. The final levels of Mega Man 3 unfortunately don't stick the landing. After all the Doc Robot antics you had to play, you might expect the final stages to be a true gauntlet. While you still don't get your energy refilled between castle stages, that's not really a problem because this is a pretty easy final set of levels. For one, no challenge in these stages is anything a player that made it this far can't easily get through, like a water section with spikes on the bottom, or a room of spikes that Rush Jet can easily fly through. I don't know, the final levels of this game just really feel like the designers were running out of time and hastily put these together. To add insult to injury, there are E-tanks and extra lives plastered throughout, so it really should be no challenge at all for you to get through the finale of Mega Man 3, even against the bosses who are also easy. Such as this Yellow Devil Mark II, who is very simple to avoid now that you have the slide, or this clone Mega Man room that can be killed in seconds with the Search Snake. The worst offender is actually the final boss against the Gamma Mech. Just look at this. This isn't with some easy mode or whatever, that's just the final boss of the game, clearable in like 30 seconds. But the game ends with Mega Man and Wily trapped under some rubble, but Breakman saves Mega Man and returns him to Dr. Light's lab. Here's where we get some more story in what is another somewhat melancholic Mega Man ending. It turns out that Breakman is actually Proto Man, the original Robot Master. Before the credits, Mega Man goes out to look for him, and you see the list of all the mechs that Light has created thus far, which includes the 6 bosses from Mega Man 1, Roll, Mega Man himself, and finally Proto Man, Mega Man and Roll's older brother. He was the test case for a somewhat autonomous machine, and while the game doesn't really explain this, we later come to learn that Proto Man was special and that he was a capable machine, but had a faulty power core, and when Light wanted to repair it, the procedure came with the risk that Proto Man might lose the memories he's gained thus far, and thus, he ran away, never to be seen again. until Wily repaired him on the side and had him fight Mega Man in this game. And now, his location is unknown yet again, and Dr. Wily's also out there planning some dastardly scheme. Which is the note Mega Man 3 ended on, to the tune of Proto Man's full theme. But in closing, am I trying to say Mega Man 3 is not good or unworthy of praise? No, I'm definitely not saying that. My experience revisiting Mega Man 3 was largely positive. I thought the new additions to the franchise were good ones that became mainstays for a reason. I think Mega Man 3 is a perfectly good game worthy of a playthrough for any Mega Man fan or retro game enthusiast. However, when you read up on how this was a troubled production cycle, that fact is quite evident in the final product. The game is unbalanced, it has an extended filler segment that almost nobody likes, even by the people who made the game, no doubt, and then it has a set of final stages that are pretty meh, as well as final bosses that leave a sour taste behind. Mega Man 3 is a good game, it just doesn't really stick the landing. So the qualities it had that are a product of being really rushed are things that make Mega Man 3 stand out from other games in this series. But I think this game has plenty of positive qualities which are enough for me to say the game is still good and worthy of its iconic status, but it just happens to be very messy, and that fact kinda hangs over Mega Man 3 and probably always will. But what is unique about Mega Man in the NES is that most franchises that started on the console only had a few games released. Mega Man had quite a lot, 6 to be exact. This gave the team behind these games the chance to really hone the classic Mega Man NES craft. So the next time I talk about classic Mega Man will be the 4th installment. However, this is not the next video and won't be coming for like 2 months. Don't want to focus on the same retrospective for too long. But there will still be Mega Man content made in the interim, so I hope everyone watching looks forward to that and all the other stuff coming up. But in the meantime, I'll close by saying what I always do. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.